We'll get started now. Let me share my screen. First of all, hello to everyone. I'll go ahead and share my screen here. I mean, today there really is an opportunity for a breakthrough for every one of you. It's around this concept that you're going to learn how to double your ability to get what you want. Now, that is a bold promise, but I'm prepared to say that it will work. And I can guarantee it actually, and we'll talk about that guarantee at the end. The cartoon on the left here, are you coming hunting or are you going to sit around here all day inventing? That's really what I want you to understand is that I've invented something kind of equivalent to the Gatling gun. So if you're going out there hunting to try to persuade someone with your spears, you might want to pay attention to what's happening here because there's always going to be naysayers out there who say, oh, that won't work. It's not worth it. It's not worth your time. Sometimes those naysayers are that naysayer voice is in your own head. But I can tell you, just ignore that. Stick with me for the presentation, and I'm very confident that you'll be able to get what you need from it. So this concept of get what you want, that is really where I can offer a guarantee.
I'll let Mick sing it for you.
You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometime, well, you might just find that you're what you need.
And that's really the promise that I can make. The guarantee is that you will get, maybe you won't always get what you want, but you will get what you need. The power of these tools is such that, they can help. When you say get what you need, there's kind of like two sides of that, right? I mean, there's the like get what you need, that's persuasion, and then there's get what you need, that's manipulation. And the way I define the difference between those two is persuasion is when you convince someone to do something that is good for them and good for you. And that's persuasion. That's get what you want in a way that the other person is winning at the same time that you're winning. And then there's manipulation. Now, manipulation is where you convince them to do something that's good for you, but not good for them. And there's a lot of people out there that do that, and they call them confidence men or con men is the short form of that. And that idea of, so what we want to do essentially is live in a world where we don't use these powers that you're going to learn today for evil, but we use them for good, for the other person's good and for our own good, but always those two together. That's really the only ethical way to use these very powerful tools of persuasion. So I decided to organize this material, and I have a lot of material into something called the Altura Academy. Now, I went to the Air Force Academy for 2.5 years. Didn't graduate, but I got the basic experience down. And the first 6 weeks of the experience is something called basic cadet training or boot camp. And for me, boot camp is the core foundation of really all the things that we'll go through at the Altura Academy, which is this masterclass in persuasion. And I call it tracing success patterns because there are these patterns that have been identified. Here's 7 of them that Robert Cialdini, who wrote really the Bible on influence, is called Influence: The Psychology of Persuasion. And he identified these 7. And if you understand those and then use them and the ways in which you apply them, think of those as patterns, like you're cutting out a pattern or you're trying to trace a pattern to make a nice picture, you just have to trace the lines of that pattern. And so I came up with this name, Tracing Success Patterns, because my brother was like this amazing artist. He was 5 years older than me. Imagine being like Leonardo da Vinci's younger brother. That's kind of the experience that I had. And I wanted the praise from my parents that he was getting for this. And so I was probably, I don't know, in 6th grade. And I found this book, and it had a great picture of a horse. And I got the paper and I just traced the picture of the horse. And I went and showed it to my mom and said, oh, see, I can do this too. And she gave me a lot of praise. And I said, oh, okay. So there is a way to sort of like finagle your way around and get good at something, even when you actually have no underlying talent. And so that's why I came up with this concept of tracing success patterns. You don't actually have to think of these things from just make them up or think them originally as original thoughts. You can just trace some other person's success patterns. So that's why I created the Altura Academy, and you can read about it at altura.net/academy. There'll be more about that later in the presentation. So, but why not just get Cialdini's book and read his book? Well, there is a reason to listen and stick around for this presentation, is that I've got great stories. I'm 66 years old. I've been doing persuasion probably since I was 4 years old. I think that this persuasion thing, that's the lens under which I look at the world. And so I've been able to, in my career, encounter a number of interesting people and get what I want from those people. And so you can see some of those folks listed up here on the screen. So what do we want to do though? It's not just learning from what Lee Lorenzen knows, because that would be one, kind of boring, and two, wouldn't be as validated as in other cases. And so what I really try to do is learn from others. You know, there's a concept in persuasion called social proof. And so, you know, these are my two sons and I walking along, and one of them said, "Hey, Dad, you need to relax more." And so you can see how I accommodated that. It's very important to find someone to emulate and to emulate those success patterns. So in my case, a lot of that is drawn from other folks. So those other folks include some of the best, the real authorities on persuasion. You can see these 11 items. We always have to go to 11 of things that, you know, if you stay to the end of this presentation, I know it's a long time, but it's going to be worth it to you, because it is worth it to you to double. I mean, just imagine what you could do if you could double your ability to get what you want from other people and other situations, and do it in an ethical way. That's a lot of power, and that power is really, you know, it can be yours if you stick around and listen to the rest of the presentation. So really encouraging you to do that. It'll also be very boring for me to do this presentation with no one in the attendee list. I don't think I could stay as excited about it. So you're helping me out as well. So I'll tell you the rest of the persuasion stories with the 3 richest men in the world. We'll go through the tracing success patterns. It's a masterclass on persuasion, really. And it's a whole booklet comes with it. Everything is that you need to really master these concepts. If you're doing a startup, then I've got a whole GEM system guide for how to raise the money, you know, get your product to grow, you know, get all of the people on your team excited about what you're doing, get that viral marketing spread that's just amazing. All that's contained in the GEM system guide. People normally pay between $30K and $5K per month just for that service. And then created a new thing. It's called the 50K per month wealth creation matrix. This is a brand new invention, flowed out of the persuasion work I was doing this past week. We'll share with you what that is. The list of books here, 5 through 10, those are really the Bible that I've used to try to learn this persuasion thing. There's a lot of other elements to it, but these are the ones that I've drawn from. And some of these go back 30, 40 years in my career when I first encountered them. The Wally video is absolutely a seminal event in my view of persuasion and how to grow companies. 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. This really allows you to predict the future of just about any market wave that occurs, like when the browser came out, when crypto came out, now that AI is coming out. It really just explains what's going to happen next. StoryBrand and How to Give a Great Demo. How to Give a Great Demo is a book that I'm working on, not finished. Maybe with ChatGPT's help, I'll finally finish it. And then we'd already talked about Cialdini and who he is and why that's important. So all of these things are, you know, very valuable, probably well over $10,000, but I'm going to, at the end, talk about a way where you can get this information, not just in a webinar form, but actually directly working together with me, and for only $500 per month. So now this is where I'm going to ask you to do something. The first time in the webinar where I'm really asking you to take a step. So just on a piece of paper, you've heard all the reasons to stay. You know, by the way, just as we're passing it by, this is a technique of persuasion called laundry list persuasion. And so it's very good when you're explaining something and give people a choice of what to do, to give them a long list like this and number the list. And it's called laundry list persuasion. And there's techniques to make this even more effective, but just the cumulative weight of all the things is why laundry list persuasion works. So that's just one of the many tips, one of those little things that will allow you to double your effectiveness from a persuasion point of view. So now we're moving into another one here. So what I'd like you to do is just on a sheet of paper, you don't have this form, but just you know, let me know how many more minutes you plan to stay in the presentation. You know, if it's 10 minutes, well, you're going to be hurting my feelings, but I can't see what you're writing anyway. If you click, you know, 120 minutes, that's the full length of the 2 hours. Now, don't think I'm going to be talking alone for those 2 hours. There's also going to be a time where you can put your questions in, and I can deal directly with particular persuasion challenges that you have. So that's why, you know, the last checkbox is, you know, until Lee gets tired of talking, and because, you know, I want to really learn how to double my ability to get what I want. So with those choices, make your pick now, write it down. It's important that you write it down. And so now what I hope is that you check that last box. And if you didn't, please reconsider, and maybe you want to move up to check that box, because it hurts my feelings if everyone doesn't check that last box. So and that last box is actually leads us into this next slide, which is you'll notice this word because here. That's a very important word. It's actually kind of a magic persuasion word. And so Cialdini, part of what makes his book great is that it's backed up by um, behavioral scientists who have actually proven out the psychology behind why these persuasion techniques work. And so one of the things that they figured out was that the way the human brain works, it has this like a push button and then it plays, and push button and plays. It's like click words, just like an old time tape recorder. I need a better example than that. No one knows what a tape recorder is anymore. But the basic, easiest way to say it is that humans maintain a set of shortcuts for thinking. And so, because if you had to think everything through from scratch every time, it would just burn up a lot of energy in your brain. And so they wanted to test this to see if this would work and how it works. And so they picked a movie with a really long line of people out the door. This is Star Wars movie. This is 1977, right before I went into the Air Force Academy, actually. And so this is the line outside Star Wars, went around the block. Interestingly enough, I couldn't find a single woman, maybe one woman in the entire line. So it's clearly marketed to young men. But I was one of those young men in the line waiting to get in because it was like the thing to do. I'd heard about it from other people. Even if I was driving down the street and I saw that long line of people, I might pull over and get in that line. That's another example of social proof. It's like, what are we in the line for? Well, it's this new movie. By the time I get to the front, I'm ready to pull my money out. So anyway, you got this long line. So what they did was they had a person, into the behavioral scientists, they had a person do an experiment where they had the person walk up to the front of the line and they asked the first person in line, hey, can I cut in line? Now there's a lot of social constructs, social pressure to not let people cut in line because it's impolite. Everyone else is waiting their turn. Why should this person be able to at the last second cut in line in the very beginning? So everyone says, no, you can't cut in line, go to the end of the line. However, then they changed it. They had a different person come up and they said, hey, can I cut in line because my 10-year-old daughter got ahead of me and I'm worried about her being in the lobby alone? That's called a real because. And almost everyone let the person cut in line. So although there's this pressure to not let someone cut, because my 10-year-old daughter got ahead of me, everyone can kind of empathize with that, and I'm worried about her being in the lobby alone. That's what they thought. That's what they thought was the reason why that was such an effective way to get people to comply or to be persuaded to let them cut in line and to get you what you want, which is a faster trip into the movie theater. But then what they did, and this was the genius of it, was they had a person go up and they said, hey, can I cut in line because I'd like to stand at this spot in line? Now that is called a fake because obviously there's no underlying extra information that would make a person want to say yes to that. And yet almost everyone said yes to that, just like the number 2 real because. That fake because was enough. What came after it was the fake part. What made it effective was that word because. So that's a magic persuasion word. And that idea alone and the use of that, I finished most emails, biz dev emails that I'm writing when I'm asking someone to do something, or when I'm thanking them or whatever it might be, I always add a because in there, and I try to come up with a real because. It's people appreciate that. So now we're going to come back. I promised that we would finish some of these stories about the richest men in the world and the conversations that we had. So I'll rehash it a little bit in case people hadn't heard the front part of it. So imagine you're back in 1997. You have an idea for a startup, which I did. It's called Shop.com. And we had essentially, we didn't have any customers. We didn't have a product. We had a little bit of a prototype. We had the vision. Didn't really have a team yet. Hadn't raised any money. Just like most CEOs, almost no traction and a need for money. And so, someone said, well, this seems like a good idea. I explained it to him. He said, well, what if Bill Gates does it? What if Microsoft does it? And I said, okay, well, that's ridiculous. I'm going to go get a meeting with Bill. And so I got a meeting with Bill to tell him about the startup and to ask him this question, hey, is Microsoft going to do anything like this? And so I walked into his office. He says, go ahead and sit down. And he's kind of leaning back. And he says, okay, so what's this startup about? And so what I did, and I think what most people would have done, is they would have started talking, and they would have began to pitch Bill on sort of what the idea is, and here's the problem, here's the solution, and on and on about here's the the TAM, SAM, SOM, all of those standard things that they teach you in Silicon Valley pitch school or in Y Combinator, is that's what people want to see. But that's not what I did. He's had 10,000 other people come into the office before him that talk doing that. So that's not the thing to do. What you want to do is something that gets his attention. And so what I did, I didn't say a word. I reached down in my bag and I pulled out this like 5-inch thick, like encyclopedia thick document, a couple thousand pages in it, and I just dropped it on the table in front of us, landed with a thud. Now, Bill leaned forward. So this is the first step in motivating someone to do what you want, Rich. It really is to get their attention. And so I had his attention. That's kind of like the first step in that persuasion, the 5-step persuasion element. So the next thing I did was I pointed out to him that on the sides of this very thick book, I had written in like blue magic marker. I guess it looks white here, but it was blue in the real life. I had written 15,000 catalogs and $100 billion in revenue. And I did that because the question that I knew was in Bill's head. He didn't even have to ask it. You could just tell by the way he was looking at it. It's like, hey, Lee, what does this have to do with me? I'm the CEO of the world's largest software company. Yeah, the internet's out there, but we don't have an online store. And what's this even got to do with anything that Microsoft cares about? We're a system software company. We're not like a e-commerce company. And so he was just sitting there wondering those things. And I said, so what I did was I told him about the size of the market, and then I pulled out the laptop. And I explained, I said, now imagine if you could have all 15,000 catalogs on a single site, and you could have that $100 billion worth of revenue happening through a checkout process with one cart across all those different merchants. No one had ever thought about this before. I got a patent on this concept of a multi-vendor shopping cart. And so when Bill saw that, he kind of leaned forward and he started rocking. And that rocking motion is a sign that Bill is thinking. He's kind of uses it as a way of processing information, new information to him. This was a very good sign to see him rocking like that. And so at that point, I pretty much knew that we had gotten the attention. We had done the visualization with the book. We had, we had the need. He was all of a sudden interested in this. There was a way to satisfy the need, which is he could just invest in the company, which is what I was getting ready to ask him to do. But now so I was just basically ready to get to the ask, which is the 5th part of those steps, those five steps of persuading someone. And then he stopped me and he said, okay, I see the vision. I got it. And he had a single question, and it was really a trap question, because if I didn't have the answer to it, the meeting was going to devolve from there. It was just going to go down to being a failed meeting. And so what he did was he asked this question. He goes, well, what about inventory? You don't have inventory feeds for all these catalogs. So how are you going to be able to know if people aren't, or, maybe they're ordering the red vest, but they're out of red vest. They only have blue vests. And so the fortunate thing was I had 2 things. I had something to appeal to. One of these principles of persuasion called the principle of authority. And I had expertise and I had trustworthiness. And those 2 are really that's the gold standard for authority. And so I had a phrase. I remembered from all the research I'd done that 38% of all orders of print catalogs were done through the mail, not through the phone. If you call on the phone and you say, hey, I want a red vest, they can say, oh no, just buy the blue vest. We're out of red vests. But by the fact that 38% went through the mail, that meant that catalog companies had enough inventory so they didn't run out. And then even if they did run out, they had a procedure where they could call back the customer and say, hey, no more red vests, you got to buy the blue vest. And so that answer and the definitive way in which I delivered it, that basically shut him up, so to the point where, just a couple minutes later, he said, okay, I want to invest. And we started talking about how much and for what percentage. So the key thing that I want you to realize, and that's just from one story there, is that this isn't just, something I can do or just something Cialdini can do or any of the other, experts in persuasion. You can get what you want, just by tracing these success patterns. I identified those 5 things that I did. That's the success pattern. I identified the use of authority. That's a success pattern. All of these things are success patterns that you can trace. They work not just, they're really certain magic key phrases. We talked about the because as a magic persuasion word. These key phrases can be used to get those naysayers to basically stop being naysayers and stop being skeptical and stop being disagreeable and basically just want what you want and want to get on your side. And there's also a way of speaking that allows you to create wealth. If you're a salesperson, there's a way of talking through those sales calls so that you'll be effective in that. Or if you're raising money, or even in your relationships, you can use the same techniques. So I've got, I'm basically 23 minutes into this presentation, and I'm just getting to the part where I'm going to talk about principle one. So I'm going to speed things up here. My voice is going to start to go faster. I'll probably, I think that if we don't get completely through it, then you can always come back and I'll just pick up from wherever I get to. So don't worry that, I listen to Audible books at like 2x speed, so I can talk that fast at least, but I'll try not to go too fast for you. The bottom line is there's a lot of information I want to share. I'm excited about it, and I want you to see it. So first one, perceptual contrast. So this is, our brains don't have an objective way of measuring a lot of things. It's always subjective, and it's based upon what they saw right before, what they experienced right before. So in this example, if I want to make you think, that's what persuasion is kind of making someone think something that they're not currently thinking. If I want to make you think that this basketball is heavy, then I'll first have you hold a ping pong ball. Then the basketball will feel heavy. But if I want to make that same basketball, make you feel like that same basketball is light, then I'll first have you hold a bowling ball, and then it'll be like the basketball's filled with helium. So that's called the principle of perceptual contrast. And the way in which we perceive differences is really tied not to their absolute value or their rational value, but to the subjective value relative to what you've seen before. One of the people that kind of is an expert in persuasion, one of the most experts in the world, is a guy by the name of Scott Adams. He did the Dilbert cartoon. Once in a while he'll do a Dilbert cartoon about persuasion. This is one of those. You're fired. What? And you go, not really, but now this 2% raise won't seem so bad. This job is all about managing expectations. That's persuasion. That's perceptual contrast used to deliver a piece of bad news. I sent you this in the email, and I'll send it to you in my follow-up email. This is basically how a woman, Sharon, who was at college, explains sort of her situation to her parents. This perceptual contrast, you encounter this in business all the time. There's, for instance, like if you've ever bought a house and your realtor is smart, he or she probably showed you some overpriced homes that were kind of dumps, maybe one or two of those. And then she showed you the house that she really thought that was right for you, that reasonably priced and really nice inside. And so because you didn't have anything to compare it to, if you'd just seen that house, you'd probably find flaws in it. But because you saw it after these kind of overpriced homes, you think, wow, this is a really good deal. It's only a good deal because you saw the real estate agent has really kind of set you up to think that way. There's another perceptual contrast thing that salespeople do all the time, which is the upgrade effect. And so if you just bought a $40,000 car and they're checking you out of the car dealership and they say, hey, well, do you want the $1,000 sound system? All of a sudden, I just spent 40K, what's another 1K? That's the way the mind works. But if you had just decided separately, you had your car and you wanted to go to some place that sold sound systems for cars, and there's one for $1,000, you would think, wow, that's a lot for basically a radio or CD player or whatever it was. All my examples are from the 1980s. I got to work on my up-to-date examples. So, and then obviously we've all seen, anytime you walk in a store, was $4.99, now $2.99. That's the discount illusion. $2.99, you have no idea if that's the actual value of what you're doing. You just know that you just saved $200, so it feels like you're getting some kind of steal. So now let's apply this to you guys. So what I want you to do, another exercise for you here, is I want you to come up with some product that you're currently selling yourself, and you have some sense about what you want to make from that product. What price you would advertise that product for, and what you'd like to make. And if you don't have a product of your own, think of some other product that you were thinking about buying and what the price was that was shown there. And now just do the math on a sheet of paper and just multiply that by 2 and then multiply it by 4 and pick some number between 6 and 12 and multiply it by that. The 2 times price, that's your tier 3 price. Your 4 times price, that's your tier 2 price. And your whatever 10x or whatever it is price, that's your tier 1 price. So I did that for my service, my gym system service, and I wanted to make at least $2,500 per month when I'm helping people with their fundraising challenges. And so the 2x price is 5,000, the 4x is 10,000, and the it's actually, I guess, 10x. What is that? 12x price is 30,000. And so those are my tier 3, tier 2, tier 1 prices. So now why do we do those? Why do we do this exercise? The reason is because these persuasion principles, I've used those to invent something new. It's called a persuasion-based price list. I discovered this or invented this. It really flowed out of something that was in the Wally video. This is literally, I don't know, 1985, something like that, maybe 1990. So what is that, 35 years ago? And it was really based upon the concept that perceptual contrast is important, and price is a proxy for value, and a money-back guarantee is a way of eliminating fear. So the way this works is my tier 1 price is 30K. This is a fundraising service that I offer. So it's 30K per month. And a minimum time period of 5 months, so that's 150K. We guarantee that you can raise, but guarantees are super important. We guarantee you can raise $1 million within those 5 months, maybe 5 million, but at least $1 million. And if we don't do it, if we're not successful, then we give you a 100% money back guarantee. So you get your 150K back. So that's the tier 1 price. And then, or on the other end of the spectrum, you can do a tier 3 price, which is 5K per month for 3 months. That's 15K. We guarantee you can raise at least 250K, maybe $1 million, up to $1 million, but at least 250K. And if we don't make it within those 3 months, then I just refund 50% of what you paid. So you can see now, so why does this work? What is magical about this? So what tier 1 is designed not necessarily to sell anyone the tier 1 product or the tier 1 price. This is different from every other 3-tier price list where you have like the home version, the small business version, and the enterprise version. That's violating the principle of contrast, because you go from a low price to a medium price to a high price. So you're ruining your chance to leverage the high price to make the lower price seem lower, even still. And so what we want to do instead is have a tier 1 price. Now this 30K per month is a very high price for this service. No one else on the planet charges anywhere close to that price. And so that's important because price is a proxy for value. So when I walk someone through this price list, they see that, wow, that tier 1 price is, this guy, he must have the best service in the world because he charges 30K for it. Now, there's no way I can afford 30K, but it's kind of amazing that I'm talking to someone who's built a system that's 30K per month, and he's got all these customers using it. And so now what's interesting is it also comes with this money back guarantee, 100% money back guarantee. It's like, oh my gosh, not only is it the most expensive, but it must really work, because no one could offer 100% money back guarantee and stay in business if it failed. So look at all the work that this one column has done for us. It's established that we're the best in the world at what we do. I mean, it was established that we have the best product and that it actually works. The other thing that it's done is salespeople have a lot of trouble asking for the money, asking for price. I do as well, because we've always lived in the world like, okay, I'm designing websites and I charge $500 per website. As soon as I talk to someone, they're going to say, oh, my cousin does websites. He's 15 years old. He can do it on the weekend. He'll only charge me $25. That's a slap in the face. That's one of the things I learned from the Wally video. That's a slap in the face. So what we end up doing is we price our product just above the level at which we can make money, but so low as to try to avoid those slaps in the face. So what we end up doing is giving massive discounts to everyone who hasn't even asked for a discount and would never, who doesn't have a cousin who can do it in his bedroom in the weekend for $25, if that was even a real story. So just by having the price list, we're no longer selling. We don't have to ask for the money. We just have to explain the price list. So this solves a big problem by having a published price list with this number on it. The next thing that's, and then the guarantee, make sure that people know that it will really, really work. And we do honor the guarantee if anyone ever chose that or decided that they wanted it. So you'll notice though that now when we come over to tier 3, we've made 5K per month seem tiny. Although if we had a pricing model where 5K was just one of the numbers on the pricing model, then it would seem like a big number. Or even worst case, if we had the free version, the $400 version, then the $5,000 version. Now we've made $5,000 a huge number. You'll also remember that $5,000 is twice twice what my target price is, what I really want to make sure that I make. And so, so that 5K is there, 3 month, 3 months to work with us. One of the reasons why people don't really act on money back guarantees is if they actually work with you for a number of months, the chance that they will have used your service all that time and then ask for the guarantee and want all that money back is very low. Because if you're good at what you do, you'll have bonded with that person during that time period. And they've been a customer all that time period as well. This is much better than the freemium model where after it's free for a while, then they have to decide later on to buy the product. Here, they're a buyer and an owner from the very beginning, and they can opt out later on, but no one opts out. So, so that's tier 3. So very effective use of perceptual contrast here. As you can probably tell, I'm very proud of this. Every customer that I have learns about the persuasion-based price list, and it's guaranteed to work. Just to give you one other example in a completely different way, I guess I should say one other thing. Everyone get the GEM system. This is the only, you want to, from the 22 million laws of marketing, there's something called the law of category. You want to create a category in which you're the only person on the planet who does it. So this is not fundraising service or something like that. This is something called the GEM system, growth, engagement, monetization, and you license the GEM system. That's why this is the fixed fee is a license fee. It's not a payment for services. So there's a lot about how this is structured to make sure that there's no one else on the planet that has this. So one of the things in working with clients is we always want to look for a way to create a system about what their product is, not just the same thing that 15 other people have. The word system is sort of magical for creating that reality. So this is a system for mediation. Now the typical mediation business out there would say, okay, it's $300 an hour or $2,000 a day, and we'll get the parties together, and that's the service. So what I did instead was I created something called the 2-summit system, meaning that both of the people in the mediation can reach the summit. It's just by creating 2 summits instead of 1 summit that they're fighting over. And so that's just a way of hooking this idea into their head. The next part of it is that we want to have all of the different parts of the system, but at the different tiers, they really apply to different things. So tier 1, these are for really expensive, big lawsuits, complex deals, potential losses like $1 million plus. They get 6 hours of free consulting at the beginning. No one else offers any kind of free pre-mediation consulting period. And then tier 3, on the other hand, is low budget issues under 100K, and you just get 2 hours. So already I'm building value between the tier 1 and the tier 3. The hourly rate, different hourly rates from $2,500 down to $250, and different levels of money back guarantee. So a refund if no settlement is reached. There's not a single mediation company in the world that offers a refund if the settlement is not reached. So this is a very high value and makes the system unique and gives people faith that this really works. And it's a lower amount for lower cases where I'm getting less money. And then there is also I wanted to build in something that I hadn't really used in systems like this before, which is give the customer the ability to pay me extra if they're happy. And so they can double basically whatever the bill has been if they like the result. And so that's just I've got hundreds of these price lists that I've done for different customers. So that's all about perceptual contrast. So I guess I want to just sum up that that's just one principle of persuasion. And by applying it in different ways, we can be extremely effective. So that's, I talked about doubling your ability to get what you want. It's probably an underestimate. I mean, this is probably 10x your ability to get what you want. But at a minimum, if you remember this, it's a way, if this is what my target amount was, by just putting this as the tier 3 price, 5,000, every customer I get is twice what I would have otherwise made. And we've done that. We've made 5,000 look smaller than 2,500 by itself would have looked just by putting it, by talking about it after we talk about the tier 1 30K price. Okay, next principle is reciprocity. So I'm actually going to take a drink here. Passion Tango Lemonade from Starbucks. That's my favorite. So back to principle 2, reciprocity. So the idea of reciprocity is that if you give someone something, it creates this social pressure for them to give something back. If I do a favor for you, you need to do a favor for me. Almost every society, every culture has something like that. It just greases the skids of how the world works. So it's very persuasive. So these are some examples. You know, when you're at the end of the meal and you're fighting for the check, there's a little bit of the person who gets the check and gets to pay for it, they've created a sense of obligation on your side. So next time you go out, you're going to pay the check. But it's more than that. In a business setting, it's like you already have to kind of like feel kind of good about that person because they paid the check. So works on pretty much everyone. So I I made the mistake I took a client out, actually a vendor out to this restaurant, and he paid the bill. Now he paid the bill because, which would not be the normal way that I would have done it. He paid the bill because about 20 minutes of that dinner was me talking about persuasion and price lists. And so I think he wanted to balance the scales. It's very important if someone does some favor for you that you find a way to balance the scales. That's proportional to that, because if you're a con man or someone who doesn't have the best interests of the other person at heart, you can leverage this to get them to give you more than the value of what you've provided. So that's what this middle picture is really about. You know, we have this, I'm going to call him the creepy guy. He wants to buy this woman a drink. He does buy the woman a drink. The woman accepts him buying the drink. And now the question is like, what is her social obligation back to him? You know, if she bought him a drink, that she's balanced it out, she's good. If she doesn't do anything to kind of balance that out, then when he makes whatever might be the subsequent request, then she might be more inclined to act on that request. So this is very dangerous. I mean, I have a granddaughter. I hope her mom has warned her about those creepy guys and balancing out the reciprocity there. The other example that Cialdini talks about is there are charity groups that send out dollar bills in the mail along with their appeal for you to donate to their charity. And there is a feeling, you know, you get that dollar bill, wow, they've given me a gift. I feel obligated to it. Okay, I'm going to at least read the letter. And, oh, okay, well, it's only a $200 donation, and I'll just go online and give that donation. So just by giving someone $100, you put in place this sort of shortcut of thinking that we talked about before, which is, oh, someone did something for me, I need to find something to do for them. So basically, this works across, you know, in a lot of different ways. There are, you know, this is the oldest version of this was in the air, maybe not the oldest version, but it used to be that there are Hare Krishna people in the airport that wanted to get donations, and so they would give you a flower, and after they give you the flower, they would ask for the donation. And so the only way to make your brain not fall for that is that when you accept the flower, say, oh, I really appreciate this flower. Let me give it back to you because I care about you as well. And now you've balanced out the favor. You don't, now when they ask for money, it's like they haven't done anything for you. So, so that's just one of many examples of how this works. Let me give you a few more. So the address labels, this is another thing for charities where they send you this little Christmas address labels with your name already on it. No one else can even use it. And then they want something back from that. We've all gotten free samples, whether it's, you know, Costco, you get a free sample, and in the Costco, you feel some obligation once you like it to potentially buy that. And then there's another, we've all been in negotiations where, and this is perceptual contrast, you want to anchor high because it gives you the ability to come down. That's like in the pricing, you know, pricing something for 30K when you're willing to accept 5K for it. You ask high, but then when you retreat to your real ask, that creates a concession and leads to a reciprocal response. So one of the things that this is probably Altura Academy in the probably 5th or 6th lesson that you'll learn is a way to leverage this in a deal making sense. When you have a complex deal, which you want all your deals to be complex, by the way, you don't want to have single variable deals. You want them to be complex deals with lots of rows of different features, and then keep track of all of the concessions. And I've invented something for doing that, basically a deal tracking system, which makes your negotiations much more effective. Now, probably the best example of the power of reciprocity that I've personally been involved with was something called the birthday calendar app story. So after we raised money from Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, we eventually raised money from a VC. VCs have, for Shop.com, VCs have a rule: it's never too early to replace the founder. So I lasted about 9 months from that. So I quit that to start a company with my son who just graduated from college. And so we wanted to grow our business. And one of the board members talked about Facebook. Now, Facebook was just launching their platform. Now, all those 9 years that I was at Shop.com, we'd gotten up to 500,000 users after 9 years. I'm like patting myself on the back. That's like a pretty good accomplishment. And so, but with Facebook just launching the platform, we heard about this company called iLike, and they added 500,000 users in 9 hours. Now, I had never heard of anything like this in the entire history of software world. So I said, okay, something new is going on. So I said to my son, hey, let's see if we can build something that will grow virally like that on Facebook. So he came up with the idea of the birthday calendar app. Now, Facebook has a feature where on the day of your birthday, they'll send out to all of your friends, hey, it's Lee's birthday. You might want to say happy birthday to him, and they come and write on your wall or send you a message, whatever. But the problem with that is that that doesn't give the friends time enough to plan a party or buy a gift. And so what we came up with was, well, we'll just show 2 calendar pages, and everyone's birthdays and pictures will be on there, and then people can see what's coming. However, we wanted to have also a feature where we could send them a message before someone's birthday, like 2 weeks before. So, hey, Jim's birthday's coming up. You really want to plan a party for him. And so you want to get that alert ahead of time, 2 weeks ahead of time. So, but you wouldn't want that for 350 friends on Facebook. That'd be you'd be spammed. So you basically just pick your top 10 friends. So what we did was, and this is where the magic of this persuasion started in viral growth, is during the onboarding, we said, well, one of the features is you can, you need to list your top friends and you'll get notified 2 weeks before their birthday. And so we did that. And then when you did that, you basically, the message that went out to those folks at the point in time when you were onboarding the app, even before you started using it, was, hey, Jim, if Jim was one of my top friends, Jim, Lee has chosen you as one of his top 10 friends because he wants to receive an alert 2 weeks before your birthday. If you want to receive an alert before Lee's birthday, click here to install the birthday calendar app and choose him as one of your friends. Now, you see the reciprocity here, right? Jim would have to be a total ingrate after I've told him he's one of my top friends. I'm going to find out his birthday 2 weeks ahead of time. And there's an app that has made it easy for me to remember that. Now, in order for Jim to comply with this, he had to install the birthday calendar app, and I would be listed as one of his friends, but then you have to name 9 other top friends to even begin to use the app. So the reason why this was so exciting was that we added basically 2 million users in 14 days. This is the most viral app I've ever been involved with by about 200x. So 2 million users in 14 days on Facebook had installed this app. At that time, Facebook only had 40 million users. So that's basically 5% of Facebook's entire install base of users had birthday calendar on their system because of this one persuasion technique, which was reciprocity. And one other viral technique, which is do not add this. If we just said use the app for a while, and then if you like it, name 10 friends or something like that, then that'd be like refer a friend, which almost never works. What we did was we did in essence, the refer a friend as a function of the app. It has to be tied to the function of the app, and it has to be done during the onboarding, so you can't even use the app. So even people installed the app and didn't like it, they had still, quote unquote, infected 10 of their friends with the viral spread of this. So super, super valuable. And it's one of those tracing success patterns. Once you understand the principle of reciprocity, then you can just apply that to your particular situation and get amazing growth. Okay, scarcity. So scarcity, we want what we can't have. So Beanie Babies, the most expensive car in the world, these jeans, the Cindy Sweeney jeans that sold out in like half an hour. Now that they've sold out, that becomes something that you want even more. The reason why this works is that there's something in our brain that says if we can't have it, we really want it, or if there's only a few left, we have to act quickly. And this is tied to a lot of different things, probably evolutionary wise, but it works in almost every context. So examples, when they said we're getting rid of the old classic Coke flavor and everyone's going to have to buy new Coke, massive mistake, essentially. But from a marketing point of view, even though new Coke, quote unquote, tasted better, people were having something taken away from them. The scarcity principle that's the worst, or the most powerful, if you will, is when someone has something and then you take it away. If they never have had it, then it's not quite as powerful. But if you can give someone something and then they have it for a while and then you can take it away, that's basically when you have revolutions, when you start taking away rights that people have. So beef importer, the idea here was an interesting idea, is that people would order more beef for their country or whoever was doing the ordering, if there was an announcement that it was going to become scarce. It kind of makes some logical sense. But what doesn't make a lot of logical sense was that if the announcement was that it was scarce, but that you were only one of the few customers who knew about this, it was exclusive information that only you had, then you'd have 6 times the normal order value, because not only was the product going to be scarce, but the information about it was scarce. So you had some special knowledge that others didn't. And my favorite about this is auctions. So auctions are inherently about selling one item. And though that one item, there's only going to be one winner, but the price is bid up. So they call them a winner of an auction, but in reality, they're kind of the loser, right? Because they're the one person on the planet who thinks this item is worth more than any other person on the planet. And so it's a problem with auctions. This reminds me of a story when I think our son was in probably like 3rd grade, maybe 2nd grade. They had in his school, they made one of these pottery plates, with everyone's hands on it in the whole class and their names in glaze. And they made one. And then they had the parents come in as like a fundraising thing between the parents. They started bidding on it. And so it started like, oh, $10, $50, $100. But then there were 2 parents in the classroom. We won't say who's one of the parents was, but the bidding went up to $2,000 for this one plate. And fortunately, the teacher, because both sides were not going to give up, it had become sort of a point of pride of who's going to own this family heirloom now that had no value before, but all of a sudden was worth $2,000 because 2 people wanted it. Fortunately, the teacher was smart enough to say, "Why don't we make you both winners, and then we'll just make another one in the class, and so you can both win." And that ended the auction there when they realized that it was no longer scarce. She could have made 50 of them, and then it wouldn't have mattered. Probably people would have spent $10 for it. So scarcity. So now we're going to tell the Jeff Bezos story. So this is really a scarcity argument in that, and a way in which you can use fear and greed to drive people to act. So Jeff Bezos ended up investing in Shop.com, and he invested 16 million shares of Amazon stock to buy 10% of Shop.com. That was at a time when Amazon stock is split 20-1. So at that's kind of 16 million is the today number of shares that it is. And if you split back the price, they were 30 cents per share. So it was basically $5 million to buy in cash, but he invested stock for that. And so, what could possibly have motivated him, sitting in a meeting across the table from him? Unlike with Bill Gates, I had never met him before this meeting. Bill I knew before from other work, but this is my first time sitting across the table from Jeff Bezos, and we're negotiating essentially a deal that ultimately is a huge deal. So attention. So he had heard about what we're doing because we were starting to get customers in our Shop.com site. It's called Catalog City at the time. And then what we wanted to do in the meeting was let him visualize what we're talking about, and then see if we can get him to want it, and then a call to action. So what we showed him first was the catalogcity.com site, which is, you could shop for products, you could find catalogs, gifts, standard e-commerce site, basically, that we can kind of see. A lot of them work that way now, but what was unique about it was in the past, you would go to the Macy's site or the Gap site or the Sharper Image site, whatever individual site it might have been, or Amazon site, and you buy your individual products there, and they're all from those merchants. You have to, if you want to buy from 5 merchants, you check out 5 different sites 5 different times. What we had was a single shopping cart, a one-cart system that you could buy from all these merchants at once. So that's what we showed him first, basically explained what we had. He kind of knew most of that already. And then we said, hey, we could basically skin this site in a way. You could still have all your book, music, video, but we could add to it, millions of products, high quality products from all of these different catalog merchants that are out there. And, we got to the point where we could build these third-party e-commerce sites based on our technology. We could do that in about 2 or 3 weeks. And so he said, okay, that's interesting. So that was an appeal to greed, that if they had at that time added this one cart system, then they could make more money and charge a commission instead of having to buy products and store them in warehouses, live off the warehouses of other people. So that was one of the things we showed him. But then, and this was, and I wish I could say I thought about this ahead of time, but I just kind of wanted to show him our flexibility, that we could do this for other people. So I showed him the same thing, but with eBay as the merchant. Now, eBay is an auction site, and they didn't have any fixed price products on their site. And so what we could have brought to eBay was a one cart checkout system where you weren't buying from, Joe's pottery site, and you don't know who Joe is, and maybe he'll ship, maybe he won't. You're buying from real products from real merchants at real prices, fixed prices. And so we showed him that. Now, what I heard later on was the instant we showed him that eBay site, then fear kicked in. And so the scarcity of what Amazon was building their own one cart system during this time period, the scarcity of what they had was going to go away, and that was very scary for them. So they wanted to be the only one in the world that had a one cart system, and now they had seen our one cart system, which was probably 3 or 4 years ahead of what theirs was. And so, and we were showed sort of accidentally. Normally, if you show your product with other people's data, they want to buy the product. But this was a new one for me. We showed our product with their competitors' data, and that ended up being a much bigger motivator. The instant we showed them this,
Jeff Bezos.
and Owen Venata, one of his kind of right-hand men, they went off into the corner. We couldn't hear what they were saying. They came back, and Jeff sat down and he says, "Okay, what do you want?" And I said, $5 million. And he goes, "Okay, we'll give it to you in cash." Now, I made a mistake because he gave us in stock, which is great. I shouldn't have sold the stock. That's a different story.
Let's talk about authority.
We follow those people who know. There's basically, if you saw this guy, you probably listen to him in terms of, if he's directing traffic. If you saw this guy, you're probably not going to let him direct traffic for you. Authority is a very, very powerful persuasion technique. We don't really have time to think through, especially in emergency situations, who we should listen to. And so we look for cues. A uniform is a huge cue as to who has authority. Sometimes a clipboard is enough to pull it off. And so we want these things that I had with Bill: expertise and trustworthiness. And those things really make authority work. Some examples here: the doctor's office. You have a waiting room, looks a certain way. You've got nurses in there behind the counter. You've got forms to fill out. You've got diplomas on the wall. You've got the uniform the doctor wears. He's got a stethoscope around his shoulders. And this leads to compliance to very personal requests. When I do this presentation in person, I ask people, it's like, if you picked a location out of the phone book, and I have to say internet, off of Google, and you drove there, and you walked up, and you walked in the door, and someone showed you to a room, and they told you to take off your clothes, would you do it? And most people say, well, no, I wouldn't. Well, you've done that many times when you go to a doctor's office that you haven't been, and it's all because of this principles of authority. All of this compliance is there. Obviously, celebrity endorsements is an authority principle, especially if they've played roles that relate to what they're talking about. So if someone has played a role as a doctor, then they're probably more effective being an advertising celebrity spokesperson for some kind of medication. An airline pilot, again, you can see the power of the uniform when you walk in. If airline pilots were wearing civilian clothes sitting in the cockpit, you'd probably begin to wonder what's going on. The other thing is that if you have authority, you can convey that authority to other people. So we probably have heard airline pilots in a very professional voice say, "Welcome to my plane. Sally and Joan and Bill are going to be helping us out as your stewards. Please listen to them because they're my representatives in the cabin." So you just see how that authority has been transitioned down into other people that are around. All good techniques that you can use from a persuasion point of view. Okay, 7 methods of conflict resolution. Now we're heading into the Steve Jobs story here. And so, and this relates to the fact that Steve had sued us, or was preparing to sue Digital Research about the graphical user interface that we had created, something called GEM, stood for Graphic Environment Manager then. That's the other name for it. And so when you have a situation, and this is really true for one of the reasons why you want to use persuasion, I use this when I'm doing mediation all the time, is you really want to understand that if there's a conflict, there's really these 7 ways to deal with it. You can read what they are faster than I can say them. But I just want to make you aware that there's a lot of different ways to deal with conflict. The first 6 of these I learned at the Mediating the Litigated Case course. I took like a 7-day course at Pepperdine. really valuable. It was a room full of lawyers, like I think there were 43 lawyers and 2 business people. And the business people ran circles around the lawyers because the lawyers wanted to fight, and the business people wanted to solve. And so we were much better at the mediation process. So the one thing that they did not have on the list is request help, appeal to a higher authority. They did not list that as one of the things. And that ended up being what we used when Steve Jobs showed up and tried to bluff digital research. So let me give you a little bit of history here. So the Macintosh launched in January of '84. Amazing commercial about that. This was the ad that they were running in newspapers, magazines, and it showed the Mac, and someone had written in a nice cursive the word hello, and that was really the state of the art at that point in time. And people thought you could kind of only do this on an Apple product. Now, of course, they had stolen all of this from Xerox, who in the '70s did something called the Alto that had all of these same features and more. But Steve Jobs was smart enough to steal it early on. Bill Gates eventually stole it, and I eventually stole it. I worked at Xerox, so I kind of inherited it. I'll call it that way. But in any case, they showed up to try to sue us. And so Guy Kawasaki, a couple lawyers, Jean-Louis Gasset, executives at Apple all showed up at Digital Research, and they said, "Look, we're going to sue you because you're totally stealing the look and feel of the Macintosh. You've got your trash can in the right-hand corner and all of that." The reason they did that was because we had started running an ad, which is basically we were poking the bear here. We were the first graphical user interface for PCs at all, and then the first graphical user interface for either PCs or the Macintosh that had color. And so our ad looked like this. So we had a color, it actually looked better than this, but we had a color version of a much more friendly hi instead of hello. And then all the colors on the screen. So they were really upset by the fact that we were doing things that they could not do on the Macintosh in terms of color and doing it on the PC platform. And so they wanted to stop us. And so, in fact, Bill Gates they wanted to stop Bill Gates, and they were going to sue him over Windows, but Bill said, no. The guys at Digital Research, they're a lot closer to what you guys are. Why don't you go sue them first? And then if you win that suit, then maybe we'll talk to you. So thank you, Bill, for sending him down to us. He told me that. He said, Bill's always been very good to me, but it was a little unfair that he did that. So anyway, they showed up, and they were effective. They were bluffing about how they were going to sue us and all of this stuff. I didn't know it was a bluff at the time. But they had our attention. And then we did something which was appeal to a higher authority. And so as it turns out, the CEO who was an amazing guy, the CEO of Digital Research, a guy by the name of Gary Kildall, he had done a prior product with Apple called the CP/M card. And they had arrangements between he and Steve. He knew Steve obviously well from that they would not basically be suing each other over these things. And so when he brought that up to Steve totally backed away. And that was an example of, we didn't have the ability, we didn't want to litigate, we didn't want to go in arbitration, negotiation wasn't going to work, we didn't want to do the self-help where we, start throwing, I don't know, rocks at the Apple headquarters, and that wasn't going to stop them. So that's the self-help. So what we did was we requested help. So that's how we got out of that from a persuasion point of view. Hey, we've hit the 1 hour point. It's time for another drink. I hope you guys are staying with me. It looks like you mainly are. So I appreciate that. We're almost done here. I know I can talk faster now you got the idea. You can probably read the slides fast enough to get the idea. Consistency, it works because you take some action and then you want to stay consistent with that action. So it works best if they're spoken or written, even better if they're public, and if they're uncoerced, meaning that there's a person actually just decided to do that. So there's some great examples in the Cialdini videos, and that's part of what you're going to get at the end is access to those Cialdini videos. But he gives a great example in there about there were a problem of no-shows at reservations, no-shows for reservations in restaurants. And so what people were saying was, hey, could you please call us if you if you need to cancel? But about 30% of the people just didn't show up. They never called. And they just added 2 words when their person was making the reservation. They said, will you, it's a question, will you please call if you need to cancel? And then they paused. And if you're on the phone, what do you do when the other person pauses and they've asked that question? You say yes. And now you've made you've made an audible promise that you want to stay consistent with, and it dropped to only 10% no-shows just by the addition of those 2 words. This is the power of persuasion to get these things nailed and improved with nothing more than little tweaks. So onboarding procedures, you want to take these very little small steps first. So basically, if you're taking a survey, you may, or if someone's giving you a survey, they're talking to you, maybe they want your support for some cause, they want you to become a volunteer. So they'll stand there with their clipboard and say, "Oh, hi, would you mind taking a survey?" Yeah, okay, I'm open to that. Well, let me just give you the board here, and you can just check the boxes that you appeal to. And then, oh, well, I'll just flip this over, and you mind signing this petition to support this idea? And then just flip over, and if you'd like to be a volunteer, then you can do that here. So we've put all that onboarding, these little small steps that lead to bigger steps. Consistency, daily completion of these Duolingo tasks. That's people have streaks in Duolingo, and so I read an article where people will actually leave the bar in New York City at 11:30 at night because they don't want to lose their daily streak, so they go outside and do like a 15-minute Duolingo lesson just to maintain that streak, and because they want to be consistent with it, and they don't want to learn something that now has value to them. They've created that value. So you'll remember earlier in the presentation, I had asked if you would plan to stay. That was my attempt to apply consistency, that by having you actually write it down, that would make you potentially honor that, because you said, okay, I'm going to stay 30 minutes. I better actually honor that. And hopefully you check the last one here. It would have been better, and in a real, if we were done this live in person, I would have had you actually share that with everyone, so that you could, and now there's social pressure of, wow, you picked 120 minutes, or you checked the Until Lee, I only checked 30 minutes. I'm almost embarrassed of what I've written down. So there's all different ways to make that consistency principle work in your favor. Active, public, uncoerced. Social proof, this is one of my favorites, super powerful persuasion technique. So we respond to what others are doing, or when in doubt, look around. So on Netflix, what are the top 10 rentals, this week or today or whatever? We don't know any of the other people that are picking these movies. Netflix could pick these movies because they make more money when you buy the #1 movie. We don't have any idea, but they packaged it as one of the top 10 shows in the USA Today, so we act on that. Now, if you're driving down the street and you see these 2 restaurants, one with the line trying to get in and one with a bunch of empty tables sitting outside, obviously you're going to pick the one where the social proof is telling you that it's the right thing to do. So basically, other people give us evidence for the right thing to do. It's most effective when there's a lot of people, or when the people are similar to us, and that tends to makes us much more likely to begin to act in that same direction. So here's some examples of social proof. So this is one that Cialdini talks about. They used to say, operators are standing by at the end of an infomercial. And this lady who kind of invented one of the most successful infomercials, she changed it to, if our operators are busy, please call again. So now your mental image of the infomercial place is not a bunch of operators sitting in front of desks and no one getting any calls. It's like, oh, wow, there's all these people are so busy, I better get in and call quickly. That busy signal, the busyness of the operators signaled that there was high demand, and if there's high demand, it must be a really good product, and therefore I want to act on it. So we talked about the Netflix one, and then the number of views, Instagram, TikTok, we're always using the social proof. Other people like this video, I'll probably like it too. So now here's, so this is, I talked about the persuasion-based price list is something that I'm super proud of. This is another persuasion, this is another invention really. Not like, kind of like the one-cart shopping system that we did, that Amazon powers 2/3 of Amazon sales right now. It's kind of like that in the sense that it's an invention that really didn't exist before, but encapsulates a lot of other ideas to make it more efficient for the world. And so the tiered price list, persuasion-based price list is one of those. And then this is the other one. This all flowed out of persuasion techniques. This is how we manage the ask when we're fundraising. So fundraising, the typical way that this is done is you have your pitch deck, There's a slide for use of proceeds. There's a slide for the size of the market. There's a slide for the progress that you've made to date. There's a slide for what you're going to do next. And then there's finally a slide called the ask. And that's essentially how the typical pitch deck is done. Completely wrong from a persuasion point of view. People can't hold in their heads what's on 5 different slides, number one. And number two, you don't get any synergy by not having them in the same location. So this persuasion-based price list, this phase fundraising chart solves all of those problems. So essentially fundraising about storytelling, momentum, and scarcity. So storytelling is we want to show all the rounds of funding. So startup, friends and family, something called circle of trust, and then angel, biz dev. We skip over VCs, early strategic, late strategic. As I remember, I think I told you, VCs have a rule, it's never too early to replace the founder. That's one of the reasons why VCs are kind of the villain in my model. It's also almost impossible to get funding from VCs. Mark Andreessen says only 7 out of 3,000 startups will get VC funding. These are the same odds I have of dating a supermodel for exactly the same reason. She's going to have a lot of other men who are taller, richer, funnier, handsomer, better personality, or so she thinks. And so she'll end up picking one of those. And that's the same thing with VCs. So we just skip over VCs and we go instead to early strategic, late strategic. So the Silicon Valley mindset is you should talk about pre-seed, seed, Series A, Series B, Series C, whatever. That's what instead we do is we talk about where the money's going to come from, because that's part of people figuring out where they belong in terms of being a potential investor in the company. So friends and family, circle of trust, biz dev, early strategic. Now we want to show momentum in terms of the company growing over time as evidenced by the valuation. So we finished this round here that was valued at 2.5 million, and then we stepped it up to 5 million. You want these to be nice multiples of one another. So from 5 million to 10 million to 50 million. So 2x, 2x, 5x. And then we want to show essentially how much money is being raised at each level. You never raise more than 10%. So 250K at a 2.5 million post-money valuation. Now, the reason we do that is that now we can show that the investor size here, well, we want to show momentum next. So momentum is we're going to get this money, we do these things, and then now we use that magic word. Because we complete those things, we can step the valuation up to here, raise some more money, do some more things. Because we complete those, we step the valuation up to here. So we're telling a nice logical story. Now, we can't predict the future, what the valuations are going to be or how long it's going to take us to do all these things, but we are showing we're basically future tripping a person into kind of what it could be if they get in here early. Obviously you want to get in early, you've got a fear of missing out. Part of that fear of missing out is you need to act within a certain date range. That's about pressure to close, and then you break it up into all these individual investment slots. So 1% for 25K. As soon as the first 3 slots come in, the next 7 slots fall like dominoes. Or maybe you do a couple 5% slots and 1% slots and 1 5%. So all of these techniques, and then you show who's going to invest next. So this is a phase fundraising chart. Now, this is kind of like the capstone event in this persuasion discussion. Look at all the persuasion techniques that are in place here. So it's the startup funding lifecycle slide. It's one slide. It's phase fundraising chart. That's authority and trust. We show all the rounds. No one else does this. Everyone else just shows the current round valuation, but we've got past, present, future. So this is about thinking past the sale. That's a persuasion technique. It's why the guy in the car dealership, when you're trying to buy the convertible, he doesn't talk about the convertible in the dealership. He talks about you driving along the beach with your significant other and your hair blowing through her hair, whatever it might be. That's your future vision. And so when you're deciding to make the purchase, you want to know that. That's going to help you decide to buy it, because you see yourself in the future version of the product. Perceptual contrast. So we're always anchoring on these post-money valuations, short and simple. It's always 10%, 1% for a flat amount. The use of proceeds for each round, that's a fake and real because. Let me explain that. So these are real becauses. We're going to get this money. We're going to do these things because we do that. That's the real part. Because we do that, we can step up the valuation. Tight date range, that's time constraints. That helps with negotiation. So showing the investors in each round, that safety in numbers. So we've got all the people that came in this round, and there's going to be people there as well. Highlight the current round, just perceptual contrast. That's a visual contrast. By highlighting this in yellow, people know where to look. And then scarcity, there's only so many slots left. If you don't get in now, then you probably have to pay double or 5x the price for the next round. Social proof, social proof, you validate each investor. As soon as the first investor comes in, first person to pay 25, everyone says, how do I know what the value of my company is? The value of your company is tied to what a buyer and seller agree to. That's the only way to value startups. You can't do the Warren Buffett method of sum total of all future cash flow discounted to the present day. That works if you're buying an apartment complex, but not if you're investing in a startup. So the key thing is to get the first investor in a given round. That's the most investor. Once that happens, then the rest start to come in, because they have the social proof of someone else came before. And then describe reasons not to invest. I have something called the Lorenzon's first law of fundraising, which is invest what you can afford to lose and have a stay friends, value the friendship more than the funds. I've said that to every investor, from my parents to Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos. The reason you say that is because you do not know the future. This is part of being ethical from a persuasion point of view. Even though I can draw a chart up here that shows the $50 million exit for the investment, I don't know if that's going to happen. It could happen. It could be higher, could be lower. But if I tell them that they're going to lose their money for sure, I'm gaining credibility. And that actually leads into the next and last principle that we're going to cover today, which is the concept of liking. People say yes to people that they like. Now, we like certain stars better than others. Some stars are jerks, but Jennifer Garner, Charles Barkley, these are people that we like. Now, what does she really know about what credit card to buy? And what does he really know about what credit card to buy? She's an actor. He's a sports figure, now a commentator. But we like them as people, and so we're willing to listen to them and what they want us to do. And so it's very important that people like you if you're going to be persuasive. And so one of the ways to build rapport with someone right when you meet them is to try to find shared interests. Cialdini talks about an example where the guy and the salesperson basically, when he's looking at a person's existing car, he kind of says, oh, see, he's got the golf bag in the back, or he's got a golf ball in the back seat, or something like that. So then when he comes in, and they're talking in the office, the salesperson might mention, oh, I'm going golfing this week, and the other person might say then, oh, I golf too. Of course, the salesperson already knew that. And so that's why that bond starts to build. Compliments is an amazing way to build rapport with someone. There's something, praise works even when it's insincere. But what you want to do, just like the fake real because, you want to find something you actually like about the other person and compliment it. And so that's why Cialdini talks about it as you should be a detective to try to find these reasons to like one another, as opposed to the smuggler, like the salesperson who just is kind of manipulating you to like him. So these things, this concept of liking works at really all scales. So this guy, Blair Warren, he wrote this amazing book. It's called The One Sentence Persuasion Course. So you could listen to me for almost an hour and a half, or you could read this one book. But this is a genius guy, basically. So the one sentence, I'm going to read it, even though you guys can read it too, is that people will do anything. That's anything for those who, and in essence, that first part of this is why they like this person. People will do anything for those who encourage their dreams, justify their failures, allay their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies. So politicians are some of the world-class people to do this. So there's a cartoon called The Mouth That Roared, the mystic musics of the Mar-a-Lago man. And independent of where you land on the Trump world, Scott Adams, this amazing comment, he's an expert on persuasion. He's definitely more in the Trump camp, but not because of all the crude stuff that Trump does, but because of the master that Trump is in terms of a persuasion point of view. And no matter what you think about him, he got himself elected once from nowhere, and he got himself elected twice after, what for every other normal human being would have been a completely disqualifying event. And so he must have something that he knows about. And so this is a cartoon about him. It's called The Mouth That Roared. It says, will it work to apply Miracle Max as his advisor in this cartoon? Miracle Max's presidential victory formula via the one sentence persuasion course, that people will do anything for those are basically encourage their dreams, justify their failures, allay their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies. So what did Trumpius do? He said, we will win again. That's the encourage their dream, justify their failures. Well, China stole your jobs. Allay their fears. We'll destroy ISIS. This is for the first term. Confirm their suspicions. You know, the immigrants are at fault. And then help them throw rocks at their enemies. It's really the media and the elite that are the losers. And so, yeah, he thinks, yes, that will work. So this is about liking, and you think about my original conversation of persuasion versus manipulation. You can use this to persuade people. You can obviously also use it to manipulate people. And it's one of the most important things. I should have shared that at the beginning, is everything about all of these elements, and the Cialdini book does a really good job of that, is that there are defense mechanisms. So when you can detect, that's the first thing, detect that one of these persuasion techniques is being used against you, then you can use the defenses that Cialdini talks about to kind of counter those. So it's very important to, when you're talking about mass movements, to kind of see, hey, is someone leveraging these types of things against me to make me comply. A lot of cults are based around these types of things. So beware, these things can be used for evil. So let me ask you a question. I've been talking for a long time. If there was a way to not have me just sitting here talking through a camera and actually be able to interact directly with me about your particular problems, is that something of interest or potential interest? Is that there's really, so what do you do with all this material? I said that at the very beginning that you can double your effectiveness in getting what you want. I think you would agree that with all of the different layers of value, that all of the different techniques, that if you just applied them individually, you could probably double your effectiveness, but you get sort of an exponential combinatorial kind of benefit when you start applying them together. I don't know if combinatorial is the right word for that or not, but basically a multiplicative event when you start applying them together. So you can do it yourself. You're going to get the video from today. You're going to get the workbook. You're going to get Cialdini's book. And so what I would recommend, if you're going to do it yourself, is just pick a principle and one tactic, and then figure out some way in your life that you want to leverage that, and then test it to see if it actually works. And that's one way to just do it the DIY, the do-it-yourself way. The other way is that we do it together, or you do it with me. And do it together is really better, because I have a system in the Altura.net Academy where we have group classes and also one-on-one coaching. And the way that works, I hope no one's surprised that we have a 3-tier price list here. So tier 1 is $2,500. So you're going to get how to virally grow your app. In the tier 1 case, there's only 4 other people in the class. We're looking at each other's faces. You're bringing to the class, whatever challenges you might have. We're going to design a persuasion price list for your solution. I'm going to go into a lot more depth on the 11 parts of the influence techniques that I offer, and do it in a group setting, which makes it a lot more fun to do the persuasion exercises, one against the other or one with the other, like we did at Pepperdine. And then one-on-one coaching. So that's 8 hours of that per month. This is a monthly fee, $2,500 per month. My normal hourly fee, 1 hour fee, is $2,500 per hour if some company wants to hire me. So you're getting 8 hours of one-on-one coaching for the ultra low price of $2,500 per month. And then money back percentage is 100%. So if you do not renew into the second month, so you pay me $2,500 at the beginning of the first month, we work together through all of this for an entire month. And then at the end of the month, if you aren't so satisfied that you decide to sign up that you don't cancel, in essence, we don't move on to the next month, then I just refund the first month's fee to you. However, you will never be able to join the class again. So there is a cost to you of deciding to opt out and get all your money back. So that's tier 1, but no one ever does that. People like working with me, and I like working with them, and that liking persuasion technique is really powerful to keep things going. On the other end of the spectrum, and this is available today, $500 per month. It's now there's larger class. That's how I can do it more efficiently. So there's 24 people in the class, and then it's 1 hour, 1 hour of coaching one-on-one coaching. And we do multiple classes per month. So it's not just like one class per month. And there's no money back guarantee. It's just no reimbursement amount. So those are the offers there. I'm just going to cover a couple more things. So I don't want to spend too much time on it, but this is the wealth creation matrix. It essentially shows you how to make $50,000 per month. The key thing is that you adjust your product price to the number of customers that you need. So if you want to sell something for $5,000 a month, you only need 10 customers. If you want to sell it for $5 a month, you need 10,000 customers. Almost all the startups I work with, they show up wanting to sell a product for $49 or $79 or something like that. And they say, oh, if we just get 1 million customers, we're making, $49 million. That doesn't work that way. You want to make money as soon as you can with your startup. And you want to price the product in a way that maximizes your chance to do that. And that's where the persuasion-based price list comes in. This is really just another example of how with empathy and experience you can gain authority. And this is what I use when I'm helping folks with fundraising. So let's just go as the very, very last thing here. Okay, so we see here the Altura Academy website. This is just altura.net/academy. Anytime you want, you can go to altura.net and just click talk with an expert and schedule a half hour and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. But if you're ready to join us in the Altura Academy right now, just go to this website, click on Altura Academy, and scroll down. You'll see the price list again. And then below the price list, there are 3 buttons for buying Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. And so if you want to take advantage of the $500 Tier 3 that we just discussed, just come in here and click this. If you're skeptical and you're not so sure it's right for you, then you should buy Tier 1 because you'll get a whole month of working together. And then if you don't renew to the second month, you just get all your money back. So with all of that, I think I'm going to end where I started. You have the ability to at least double your ability to get what you want. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm ready to wrap it up now. Please go to altura.net/academy. Go ahead and join the next class. All you have to do is click that button that I showed you, and off we go.
And don't forget, the Altura Academy comes with a guarantee.
You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometime, well, you might just find